Thank you, Honorable Dato' Ahmad Speaker, for this opportunity to debate on the Sarawak Heritage Bill 2019. Congratulations to Yang Berhormat Menteri Pelancongan, Kesenian dan Kebudayaan, and Adun N15 Asajaya for tabling this bill. This bill is important to preserve and to protect Sarawak's heritage for future generations to know the rich history that Sarawak has to offer. And this bill is important to ensure that existing heritage buildings are not forgotten in the name of development. I take interest when a member for Kota Sentosa mentioned about the courthouse. It's been well developed. There's nothing wrong with a restaurant. But if we were to leave the courthouse as it is, with all the benches and tables, instead of having a heritage building that is used and maintained, we will end up with a ghost house because nobody will go there. Imagine nothing there. And nobody will visit the place. But now it's busy. Everybody visits the place. And it's lively. History is preserved, heritage is preserved. And talking about James Brooke and Liu Shan Bang, it's interesting too because YB, or member for Kota Sentosa, left out Lo Fong Park and Teo Ngin Lo Fong Park. Lo Fong Park and Liu Shan Bang, well, Liu Shan Bang fought with the British. Why? Because the British wanted to tax Liu Shan Bang. Liu Shan Bang worked very hard, that's true. He digged for gold, he mined for gold. And James Brooke wanted to impose tax. And there's nothing wrong to do that, impose tax to develop Sarawak, I suppose. Well, Liu Shan Bang doesn't agree with taxation. So they fought, and Liu Shan Bang had to move and eventually move to Pontianak. And Lo Fong Park took over and set up a republic in Pontianak, in fact. The Lo Fong Park Republic, just like Singapore Republic. Unfortunately, the Portuguese fought against the Lo Fong Park, and that republic was quashed. And that was history. That's history. That's interesting. My point is, when Liu Shan Bang fought with the British, fought with James Brooke, in my Batu Kitang constituency, there was a kampong called Lida Tanah. In Lida Tanah, there's a rich history there. I visited the place, I visited the graves. There are Chinese graves in between Muslim graves. Because there were a lot of wars there, and the Malays fought against the Japanese. They were buried there. Liu Shan Bang fought against Liu Shan Bang fought against James Brooke, and they were buried there as well. So there's a lot of history there. And my point is, there are already these writers and authors documenting the events that has happened. I've also met them. And in fact, we were talking with CM to look at the possibility of developing that area, that Kampong Lida Tanah, into a tourist spot. It's a long story. There was a relation with, YB for Serembuk as well. When it comes to this interesting episode, tourism, we are related, yeah. First battle of what, I don't know. Anyway, when all these are recorded, I just mentioned earlier during my debate speech on Pustaka that as the state depository, Pustaka is to acquire, care, and preserve the state's intellectual heritage. And this is made possible through legal deposit, a statutory provision which obliges publishers in Sarawak to deposit copies of their publications to Pustaka. And this is happening, already happening. The records that are documented are being deposited with Pustaka. And the main purpose of legal deposit is to preserve Sarawak's literary heritage and make them accessible for present and future generations. And this is also important and true. And may I remind all of us, including members for Kota Sentosa, if it is not because of the white Rajas who came to Sarawak, who leave a good legal system behind, who leave a good administrative system behind, we may not even have this beautiful house today, this wonderful dune. You know, and it's modeled based on the Westminster concept and heritage. And it's because of our British heritage that we have this and what we have today. And if I may refer to, this is another interesting thing. When Kota Sentosa, member for Kota Sentosa brought up Clause 16, antiques to be registered, antiquities to be registered. That is under 16.1. If we look at 15, 15 is discovery of antiquities. And 15.6 says that any person who, being the finder of an antiquity, fails to report, blah, 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 and then there is an offense, and there'll be fine. 20,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years. Okay, now let's look at 16. Any person other than a native of Sarawak. Why? Let us not judge the law too fast and interpret it using racial sentiments. I remember, and I think a lot of us remember, in my Anarais, Kampong Anarais, the Longhouse, I used to visit the Longhouse, bring friends and tourists to visit the Longhouse. There was one lady there called Councillor Emily. She must be 90 by now. I kept meaning to visit her again, but didn't make time to do it. But every time I go to this Longhouse, this room is locked. I remember bringing tourists to this room, and in this room, under lock and key, there was a lot of antiquities in there. Very valuable antiquities. Imagine if we ask her to report what she has, document what she has, else she'll be fined 20,000 and go to jail. She may find it is such a troublesome thing to do. She may even sell off the whole thing because she's already 90. And if she pass on to her generations, they may not have the means and the time and the means to register all those things. So let's not look at Clause 16.1 alone, and we look at it holistically and understand why there is this Clause 16 and why the word native is there. Once this bill is in place, I congratulate our minister. Once this bill is in place, wait for me to just finish this. Wait for me to finish this sentence, okay? Yeah. Once this bill is in place, there is a clause there to allow the government to buy over these properties, like Councillor Emily, so that it doesn't fall into other people's hands. It will not be sold to England, sold to London, and sold to China, for instance. There's a huge market in China now, buying up all these properties, all these antiquities. But we want to keep it. So the government will have to buy it over at the end of the day. Kota Sentosa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry,
thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get the permission of our...
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker.
Mr. Speaker has switched on my mic. Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to ask the Yang Berhormat from Batu Kitan to state his position, whether he support 16.1, Section 16.1, as it is drafted and tabled in this House, which impose an obligation, a mandatory obligation on all non-native to register all the items that they have which is more than 50 years. I wish to get him to state his position. Is that his position, and as well as the position of the SUPP to support such a widely drafted section of the law which impose mandatory, which impose not only fine but imprisonment sentence on all those non-native who did not apply for it, who did not register anything in their possession that is more than 50 years old.
Thank you. Member for Kota Sentosa. You have been sentimental. You have been emotional. I'm not a lawyer. But I understand. I understand the law.
Let him say his piece, please.
Interpret the law. Read the clauses, not just 16.1. Look at the intention of these clauses. I am sure when this was drafted, the intention was good. And I explained to you why there is this intention, native in place. Because if you were to ask Councillor Emily to register, are you going to buy it? Yeah, if you buy it, it's okay. Member for Hujut. But if it was sold in open market, this antiquity should be gone. So our state will have to buy it at the end of the day. If you can buy it, also good. But other people, if it goes to China and England, it's gone, lost. So, what I'm saying is, we have to look at it holistically, practically, interpret it holistically. For all I know, member for Kota Sentosa may have his point, in which case we have to look at it as well, holistically. So you are saying that you want everybody to register, including the natives like Councillor Emily, and there's many of them in all these long houses. Let the law take its course. Let this be endorsed. Let this bill be endorsed. And I'm sure there's clauses in there to take care of scenario like Councillor Emily. Thank you very much, Dr. Amar Speaker.